Quarterback Danny Dimes shows out yet again in Colts minicamp. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of horseshoehuddle.com, and my partner, Jake Arthur, is our credentialed boots on the ground for the site. He was showcasing all he does for the site today, running all around everything Colts related. He was there at Colts minicamp, and then obviously he sat in while the Irsay sisters did their introductory press conference. That whole video is up on our YouTube, so definitely check that out. We're going to talk about these impressive women here by the end of the show. But first off, Jake, we have to talk about Colts minicamp. And before we get into the man of the hour, which is obviously the quarterback, that's what everyone wants to hear about, everyone wants to see. We do have some injuries to mention, guys who were held out of practice. And again, this is minicamp, so some of these guys are nursing serious injuries, but some of these guys are also nursing like a bruise, and you just don't want to put him out there for minicamp because it's not that big a deal. So obviously the big ones here, Anthony Richardson, Zaire Franklin, Jalen Carlisle, are all dealing with recovery and or, a recurring shoulder injury. Obviously in Richardson's case, we've talked about that at length at this point. But some other players that are out, Samson Ebukam obviously coming back from that major injury last year. Daniel Scott also coming back from his major injury last year. Jalen Jones was held out today. I will ask Jake here in a second if there was any clarification on that. But Blake Freeland, David Long, Blaine Taylor, and Maximilian Mang, or Manamillion Mang. Did you put that wrong in here?
That's a typo.
Okay, I was like, am I saying it wrong? I'm pretty sure it was Maximilian Mang. But Jake, do we have any update on any of these injuries, or just kind of, we're holding guys out just because at this point?
Not really. The only one that's like mostly noteworthy that's new is Jalen Jones. But Shane Steichen didn't mention it yesterday, and we won't talk to him again until Thursday. So we'll see how the week progresses. Other than that, a lot of these guys sat out parts of the last week or so. Some guys that were back, Michael Pittman Jr., kind of didn't expect to see him after he got banged up yet. Like same thing happened last year. Got, tangled up in OTAs, knocked knees with someone, and they held him out through the minicamp. But he was here. Josh Downs was back. He had the soft tissue thing that was going on. Same with Drew Ogletree. And Charvarius Ward wasn't injured, but they had been bringing him along slowly after he'd been spending quite a bit of time with his family out of state before everyone got moved over. But he was out there in the team drills and everything today. So he got I don't know that he was out there like 100% of the snaps, but he definitely got an increased workload today. So as far as injuries goes, there's nothing that's like a big red light or anything, although we would love to see what's going on with Jalen Jones.
Yeah, and it looks like the Colts also had a pretty hefty workout list today. Now, with minicamp, you can invite workout players to practice with your team. Obviously, the headline name with that was Desmond Ridder, and I guess the Colts signed him. I believe they signed him. Is that what Mike Muma saying here, or was there no announcement for that?
I haven't heard anything about that yet. I've only seen that they worked him out.
Okay, so they worked him out. We don't know about a signing there, but either way, this is more of a camp arm. This is a guy coming in for minicamp just to get some reps in, showcase what he can do. This is not something that moves the needle, but it is a big name, a former third-round pick, I believe is what he was.
Very good QB5.
Yeah, really good. I mean, probably one of the best QB5s in football at this point, I think. But speaking of that quarterback position, now moving on from the injuries and obviously the workout of Desmond Ridder, we'll see if anything comes of that. Daniel Jones, the quarterback that you and I are kind of presuming is going to be the starter going into the season. I'm assuming he got every single first-team rep today because there's really no reason why he wouldn't. How did Daniel Jones look? And again, we're going to stipulate this here because we did get a couple comments. This is mostly 7-on-7s, mostly non-padded practice, so it is set up for the offense to win here. But you still want to see your quarterback complete some passes and do some things. So we're not going to say it's a bad thing for the defense because it's part of what's going on here. But Jake, what did you see from Daniel Jones today?
Yeah, I think Jones excelled in a pretty advantageous situation, which obviously is what you want to see. Like if you're set up to succeed, then hopefully you succeed. So a lot of it was in the red zone today. anywhere from the 20-yard line all the way down to the 5-yard line. And he had touchdowns from every length of it, basically. So during 7-on-7s, I had him at 6 of 9. He had 4 touchdown passes during that span. Again, this was mostly red zone. But he had a 20-yarder to Tyler Warren. He had a 20-yarder to Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce. The Tyler Warren one he was like wide open along the right side. But with Pittman and Pierce, he threw them contested catch balls on both of them. Kind of fade routes where, he let his big bodied guys, go up and do the rest of the work. So that was good to see, because obviously one of the main things you wonder about with him is he going to test guys downfield? And it is just practice, but that was one of the biggest issues with Gardner Minshew, and he didn't even do it very much in practice. So I at least like what I'm seeing with Jones not being afraid to push the ball downfield. He's got guys that can do it. So he's actually taking advantage of that. In 11-on-11s, not as much passing, but I had him at 3 of 4. 2 more touchdowns. One of them was about a 5-yard rushing touchdown. The other one, A.D. Mitchell, from about like 5 yards out, I think, which Mitchell's having a good time, man. This is his time of year. He really excels. He has fun on the field, on the practice field, and we'll see if that turns out to be hopefully something fruitful during the regular season. But right now, he's looking good again.
Yeah, and hey, look, maybe if it doesn't work out on this whole NFL thing, he's got a flag football future, because he's so great in these like 11-on-11s.
You get A.D. Mitchell out in space, and he's going to kill you.
Yeah, we're hoping that translates to the actual games this next season. I'm still very hopeful for him. I know we're making jokes here. But yeah, Daniel Jones, a veteran quarterback, you want him to look this way in mini camps, especially with a shorthanded defense, a defense that's learning a whole new system, and with a pretty solid group of players around him. I mean, we're looking at Josh Downs, Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, and then Tyler Warren thrown into this. I mean, that's a pretty good pass-catching group right there for your veteran quarterback. So you really want him to look like the veteran quarterback out there. And it's great to hear that Pittman and Pierce were winning those contested balls like we saw them win last year. 2 of the better contested catch guys on the team, doing some good things. One more thing I want to complain about, though. I hate when quarterbacks run it in non-padded practice. We're not allowed to hit you. Why are you running, man? Like, come on.
That's why I'm very selective about what I say the result of a play is going to be. It depends on the spacing of the defenders, like how much room they had to run, how close it is to whether it's the first down marker or the goal line or whatever. And I think this one probably would have been a legit touchdown.
Okay.
There was plenty of space there. And if any defenders would have met him, I don't think they had the angle on him for him to not just be able to lower his shoulder and get in. So I'm going to give him the credit on that one. I think he might have got in.
As long as the grass didn't tackle him, I think we're doing pretty good here. We know his football follies that he had a couple of years ago with the Giants. But do you have any news and notes with the second or third team offense today? Anything really stand out to you?
Well, I always like to see, I kind of combined it together. Who are the favorite pass catchers so far? When you put together 7s and 11s, Michael Pittman Jr. caught a couple. Tyler Warren got a couple, as did Josh Downs. Very smart. Those are 3 guys who are going to usually move the chains for you, make big plays. So we'll keep an eye on that to see, by the end of minicamp, who is in the pecking order there. But obviously, guys you want to rely on. We get asked about Riley Leonard a lot, or, comments about him being the future or what have you. And, I like Leonard for what he is. Your QB3 this year, maybe your QB2 moving forward after next year. Not the best day so far. He had a couple all right days during OTAs, but this one, his accuracy was just kind of a little bit all over the place. He did have an interception that we'll get to later, because I kind of want to highlight the defensive side of it on that. But not his best day, but, he's a rookie. He kind of gets the grace of not every day being perfect. So, that was a little update on QB3. Again, got a lot of guys going on right now. It's cool to see Jason Bean in what feels like an actual football setting, because this time last year, it was a lot of just seeing what this guy can do, and he gets the occasional snap. But because of Anthony Richardson being out, you see this guy getting a few more live reps than normal. And I like what I see from Jason Bean. I don't know how realistic it is that where he's going to wind up in the pecking order, because I think Riley Leonard is probably the planned guy. But I don't hate what Jason Bean could be. I'm not saying he's a guy that's going to play in the NFL, but all you can do if you're Jason Bean is take advantage of what's given to you, and he never looks terrible out there.
Hey, first overall pick in the UFL draft. I mean, this is a superstar in waiting there when it comes to the UFL at least. But yeah, I would love to see him somehow crack the roster. I mean, we'll see. Again, with the Colts' top 2 guys and their injury history, Bean being on the practice squad this year doesn't mean he's not going to be on the active roster at some point with these guys' injury history up top. Real quick, though, before we get to our next segment, Jake, offensive line, any changes there? I know there were some guys out today, but same starting 5 there on the O-line from what you saw?
It was Bortolini back at first team center. Now at the end of practice, it was Josh Sills at left guard instead of Quentin Nelson. Quentin was still out there, but this was just at the end. I don't know if Quentin needed to leave the field for anything or if they're just trying to get someone else other than Matt Gonzalez some guard reps. Don't know what's up with that. We'll obviously see if Quentin's back out there tomorrow. Could be nothing at all. Like we'll see. It's just something I at least noted there at the end.
All right, you guys heard it here first. We're going to see Quentin Nelson bench this year for. You knew where I was going with that, but coming up, guys.
Well, I thought you were going to make it worse talking about injuries.
Okay. Coming up, guys, we're going to talk about this Colts defense, and while they didn't have the greatest minicamp day, there was a notable standout when it came to an interception in the linebacker room. We're going to talk about that here in just a second.
All right, Zach, I don't know about you, but sometimes I check my bank account and I'm like, hey, that's not great. Where did all of this money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, I'm dropping money bags all the time. I'm that kind of guy. It's easy to lose track of where all this goes, but that's where Monarch Money comes in to help. It's your personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app either. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place so that you can stop just managing your money and treading water, and you can actually start building some wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much certain apps were really taking a lot of my money through no fault of my own. I certainly do not have impulse control problems, but now I budget smarter and save a lot more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. All right, Zach. So when we're talking about practice, training camp, minicamp, all this, it takes a long time to be able to tell any definition in the lineups. Other than most of the guys that are starters, but even with Gus Bradley, there is so much rotating. But the problem now for those of us who try to tell all of you what the pecking orders are, Lou Anarumo is a guy known for not doing anything the same at all ever, basically. So there's been a ton of rotation between the linebackers and the secondary, defensive line as well. I have a feeling there's some guys who I think are a little more favored than others. But at the end of the day, there's so many guys rotating. Like there are so many guys in these conversations that, there's only 53 spots on a roster once week 1 gets here. I don't know what to tell you, but I will say there were a couple linebackers that really stood out today. So Cam McGrone is a guy we've seen a lot through minicamp and OTAs. Now, mind you, Zaire Franklin and Jalen Carlisle are both out right now with, coming back from their injuries. But I don't remember ever seeing Cam McGrone this involved before when there were injuries, even prior. He's been here a few years now, so we've seen our fair share of injuries. But he's been very involved. Had a big day today. Came up with an interception against Riley Leonard in the back of the end zone. Leonard threw it about 15, 20 yards to Tyler Warren into the back of the end zone. Not the best throw. It should have been higher. But still, McGrone was in great position, stayed with Tyler Warren the whole time, and was there to intercept the ball. And just like later in the next series, had another pass breakup, a near interception off of Daniel Jones. So Cam McGrone is really standing out a bit. And then our guy, Shegu Alubi, near the end of practice, I forget who the receiver was, but it was Salvin Ahmed, ball carrier, got a little too casual with it, and Alubi came through with the peanut punch. Ball flies out, everyone goes crazy. So Alubi, playing chess and staying aware when the play breaks down, which honestly, we've seen a lot of big plays from the Colts defense over the last few years of playing to the whistle. And that was kind of a good example of it. Big plays happen when guys let their guards down. And so, Alubi and McGrone are a couple guys who would see a lot of action if Zaire Franklin and Jalen Carlisle were to miss time. So it was good to see them stand out.
Hey, Sekou Alubi has one career start and has an interception in that one career start.
He does.
So if we're talking about guys, that could get a chance and make some plays, yeah, I think Alubi's a good player. I think he's a really solid player. He's a guy I want as my linebacker 3 or 4 on my team and as a core special teamer. And then McGrone, crazy enough, this is his 3rd year in the NFL. I think it's his 3rd or 4th year in the NFL. Only 24 years old still. Very young player. Very young player, came out right around the time of COVID, but came out at 20, 21 years old. And so maybe it just took him a little bit more time to grow into his role and grow into who he is. I mean, obviously we don't want to take away too much, obviously, from mini camps, but yeah, Cam McGrone's a player the Colts have clearly liked. They have done everything they could to keep him on this roster, like an Isaiah Land type of project player the last couple of years. So,
special teams stand out at the very least.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I think the Colts have been trying to get him, ready for this type of role at some point, and hopefully he's turning that corner there. We do have a couple other pass breakups here that you mentioned here, a corner and another defensive back, a few guys that we are obviously big fans of here on the show.
Yeah, so there was one series for Daniel Jones that wasn't so hot during 7-on-7s. It was down the low red zone from about like 5 yards out, I think, and he had three straight incompletions with it. Samuel Womack had a breakup. It was one of McGrone's breakups, and then Joe Bocci had a breakup as well. Bocci's another guy that's been very well involved. I get the feeling in Cincinnati they wanted him to have more of a defensive role than they just really ever had the opportunity to allow. So yeah, Bocci's a guy who now in his 2nd stint with Lou Anarumo, keep an eye out for that in case there are injuries, because I think Anarumo likes him a good bit. But then one of our UDFA darlings, Trey Washington, a guy, you had his agent on recently. He had a nice little pass breakup in front of A.D. Mitchell, who A.D. Mitchell is a guy who will steal your soul at this time of year. He puts lots of guys on posters, but no, Trey Washington had a nice pass breakup, jumped up and swatted the ball away in the back of the end zone to break up a touchdown. So yeah, good play by our UDFA. The arrow is pointing up. So far, probably our favorite UDFA so far is having a big time.
Yeah, I mean, again, he still has the best track to make the roster outside of the kicker, obviously, at the Colts signs, because you never know with kickers. But, aside from kickers, like going into real players on the football team, we're looking at a player like Trey Washington because there's just not many guys he's competing with. You look at Daniel Scott's not practicing right now. Rodney Thomas, we're going to talk about in a second, he's out there. But I wouldn't say that's the most secure spot in the world. And even if it was a secure spot, safety 4 is up for grabs, and regardless of what they do with Hunter Wohler, which might be a safety / linebacker type player. So Trey Washington, at the very least, can be a practice squad guy and at least have a chance to make this team. But I do want to talk about Rodney Thomas for a second with you, Jake, because you mentioned the other day on the show that when the Colts were going into their dime looks, they were bringing Nick Cross down to play linebacker in the box and putting Rodney Thomas at deep free safety alongside Cameron Bynum, which I think is fine. Like, as long as Thomas is playing deep and not anywhere near the line of scrimmage, I think he's perfectly fine back there. He's shown the ability to be a rangy free safety in the past. So I think that's an okay dime look, but has that kind of been continuing? Like, is he really getting a good amount of reps when the Colts are going to dime, or are we seeing like other defensive backs rolling in there?
Well, we've seen 3 practices so far, and that's been the case in all 3 of them. So coupled with his core special teams ability and the fact that we've seen them giving him a lot of looks there in 3 safety sets, I think, he's still got a chance. Again, part of it is because of a lack of depth, and he is easily the most well-experienced guy back there outside of Bynum. He's got a shot to make this, and there's not been any opportunities yet to see him really exceed or fail in this yet. Like, They haven't been testing him back there quite yet, so I can't say how it's gone, but he's getting the reps back there.
Yeah. And then one more thing I want to ask you about, because he's kind of slowly becoming a star of the show and a star for at least Colts coaches. Justin Wally, you have it in here that he didn't have the greatest day, got beat for a few touchdowns on the outside. I think Alec Pierce beat him for one of the touchdowns. I saw you mention earlier on social medias, but he's getting that run with the first team. With Jalen Jones out, was he out there on the outside, or where was he really getting most of his run today?
Yeah, so it was interesting because previously with Charvarius Ward not doing team stuff, Juju Brents had been out there, but now it was Charvarius Ward and Justin Wally on the outside with Kenny Moore on the inside. So the rookie got some run with the ones today. The coaches really, really like him. Now, it didn't go all that great. Michael Pittman Jr. bodied him for a touchdown there during 7-on-7s, but I mean, they're giving him the opportunity to go out there and see what he can do against their best players. We'll see what it looks. I mean, I imagine Jalen Jones will probably come back and reassume the first team reps whenever he is back. But I think they're going to give Wally a fair shake. I don't know if this is an open competition for that outside corner role or not. But I think the Colts coaches really want to find a way to get him on the field.
Yeah, I'd be curious if they would entertain like a 70-30 split or like a 60-40 split with Jones and Wally as that second outside corner, and maybe get Wally some of those dime looks like you mentioned, like maybe in the box or whatever, like just some way to get him on the field, because obviously you don't spend a top 100 pick on a guy that you don't want to play. Like I do think they're going to find ways to get him on the field. But that's all we have for Colts practice today. Don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow with more coverage on this Colts minicamp week. But we do have one more thing to close out today's show, and that's talking about the Colts' new owners, the three women that had their press conference today, talking about this Colts team, what they expect for the future, and the impact in the community. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. All righty, Jake, you were wearing out your boots today because you were boots on the ground all day long at Colts facility. And while you were getting ready for practice, you were also there in attendance for the Irsay sisters press conference, introducing themselves as the new owners of the team, and really what they expect with the team going forward, and answering some questions from media. So just overall, what was your takeaway from this press conference with, I think Carly did most of the speaking, but again, all three women were there. They're representing the team, and we're one great unit there today for the Colts.
Yeah, so a lot of it was just like getting to know who they are as people and, their background and stuff a little bit. But some of it was what are their views on things in the current state of the team. And, I think a couple of the things that I had tweeted out that probably got the most traction was one of them, they were asked about Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard, and Carly really answered that one. Basically, she said, they do have faith in those two, but they both know that they have things that need to change. They want to get back to winning, but winning alone isn't good enough. They want to be the best again. Because don't forget, outside of the Patriots during the Peyton Manning era, the Colts had the most wins. Like they were setting any other record that could be done that the Patriots weren't doing. The Colts were right there. They want to get back to those glory days. They don't know how it looks, but there's changes that need to be made, and there was no admission of a hard mandate that it's playoffs or whatever, because we've discussed this before. Crazy things happen in the NFL, and you just don't know how things transpire. They even said that as well. Injuries can happen, certain things come up, but yeah, they have a standard that has not been good enough. They said over the last few years, certainly Jim Irsay was not satisfied with how things were going. He had belief in his people that they could get it going again, but definitely not satisfied with how things were going. And neither are Carly, Kaylin, and Casey. So, I mean, they are taking over now, midway through the off season. So I don't know what is really going to go on. Any sweeping moves or any big moves that could happen before the season, probably not. But they now have a season to digest things and see what they really think. We don't know how all this is going to transpire, but they're kind of viewing this through a fresh lens. They've been in the building and doing a lot of work, obviously, for a couple decades, but they now are in the driver's seat of this thing. So who knows? I mean, I think we were all a bit surprised last year when both Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen retained their jobs. If there's another repeat of that, I would be kind of surprised if everyone leaves satisfied with that.
Yeah, and I think my takeaway just from hearing them talk in recent times, and obviously with this today, is I don't know if they're going to be as sentimental as Jim Irsay was when it came to his guys. I think that they're going to have more, I don't want to say like a hardline stance, but I do think that they're going to be more business-like than family-like at times with this. And I do think Carly did a really good job in the press conference today talking about how, she wants to be someone who is an owner that listens and an owner that is there for the organization, but wants to let their people do their jobs like Jim did. But again, I kind of got more of the takeaway that it's not going to be as lenient maybe as Jim was at times. Is that kind of your takeaway as well?
Yeah. And I think part of it is, they said they want to have the right people in the building, delegate, let them do their jobs, and then leave them alone, give them space to do their thing. But at the same time, that means if things go awry, the onus is on those people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to point the finger or blame and everything, but they're hiring you and trusting you to get a job done. And if it's not getting done, well, there's only one person to look at in that instance. So they do want to be probably a little more hands off, which overall Jim Irsay, he was involved and he was out in front of the cameras and everything. He was very public, but that is a philosophy he had. He wanted to hire good, smart football people and let them do their thing. He didn't really want to get involved. Like 2022 was wild. It was probably an impulsive thing for him to do, but that's not how he wanted to operate, and neither do they. So those were a couple things. They were asked about Anthony Richardson as well, and Carly said, it's too early to make any like big decisions about that, like what his future looks like. But she said, they drafted him for a reason. He's obviously incredibly talented. So she did kind of defer to Shane and Chris on that, as they'll obviously be the ones determining what happens with Anthony from here on out. But no, like they still believe in him if he's able to play. Obviously, he's going to come back. Not to make that sound like it's a permanent injury or anything like that, but like, if he wins the job and he comes back and plays, they have faith that he can be a good player, basically.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and they were towing the company line a lot with a lot of these words. Like, you're not going to come out here and say like, oh, we're going to fire all these guys after the season. Anthony is not our guy going forward. Like, you're not going to say that obviously before the season when these guys are still in place. But I do think they did a good job of just towing that company line and doing their thing. So nothing really substantial here, just good to get them out in front of the camera and hearing them speak. But I did want to ask you, Jake, these three women have been fantastic in the Colts community. Obviously, that was something that Jim was so great at, just being a lovable presence in Indianapolis and being someone who headlined so many great community things. And these girls and these women have been great at that as well. They have been fantastic at just being involved with kicking the stigma and so many other things. So did they say anything about that today, or are we just kind of assuming going forward they're going to still be headlining those things?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously that'll be mostly Kaylin's jam there. But no, that's an incredibly important part of it to them. Like, for how much people know Jim Irsay was generous, they still don't really know the half of it. Yeah, that's incredibly important. That's something he instilled in them. And that is their family business. Again, they're very ingrained in Indianapolis. Like, Indianapolis and Indiana has been their home for the majority of their lives. So it's not like they relocated here from Baltimore as well, or, they came from Los Angeles and moved around. Nothing. Like, they've been a big part of Indianapolis. They want to reinvest in this community, obviously. They want to show, even an ounce of the generosity that Jim did. And that's one way they really want to like honor his memory is, one of his core values was, being good to people and being generous and things like that. So that's certainly something that's not lost on them. And, if he left them with anything, it was to treat people well. And they certainly plan on doing that through the Indianapolis community. I mean, their philanthropic efforts are not going to ratchet down by any means.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So again, just a good introductory press conference to hear from the new owners, and this is the first of many times we'll hear from these women. They're fantastic, and I'm really excited for the future with them at the top of the Indianapolis Colts. We do want to thank you guys, though, for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. Now, for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And you're going to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop. Follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks too, all on socials. We're also on TikTok and Instagram, so check us out there. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening.